He almost turned back before she saw him. That was what she noticed first. The hesitation, the way the man stopped a few steps away, as if one more stride would seal something neither of them could undo. Lin Hu stood still, fingers locked around the handle of her trunk, watching him decide. When he finally spoke her name, his voice was calm, but his eyes carried the weight of someone already apologizing for a future he could not stop. She answered him carefully, too carefully, because this marriage was not a dream, it was an escape. And escapes were never gentle. As he lifted her trunk with easy strength, Lin wondered what kind of man practiced sounding certain when his heart was not, and why fear followed him like a shadow he refused to name. Lin was 22, newly arrived, newly alone. Her white prairie dress had been mended twice at the cuffs, scrubbed until the cloth thinned, and pressed into neat obedience. A small ribbon rested at her throat, trembling in the wind that swept across the station platform. She stood with one trunk, one worn satchel, and a folded marriage paper softened by months of handling. The land beyond the rails looked endless. Pale grass, low timber, a sky so heavy it made daylight feel borrowed. "Miss Hugh," the man said, "I'm Thomas Calder." He did not smile. He did not pretend she was not afraid. His stillness demanded respect, not comfort. "Mr. Calder," she replied. Her English was precise, learned the hard way. Mistakes had once cost her more than pride. The station master watched them too closely. Lin felt that gaze like a hand pressing between her shoulders. She had told herself for months that marrying a poor rancher would be honest hardship. Work, dirt, a life that belonged to her, even if it was small. Thomas looked the part. His coat was patched at one elbow. His boots were worn smooth by distance. His gloves had been mended at the knuckles. Yet his eyes did not belong to a man worried about money. They belonged to someone guarding old damage. He set her trunk into a wagon that had seen better decades. "The ride is long," he said. "You can rest." Quote, "I will stay awake," Lin answered. Roads were not kind to sleeping women. He nodded once and clicked the reins. The horses moved. For a time, only the wheels spoke. The land rolled gently, stubborn trees clinging to rises like survivors. Lin watched everything. Danger often wore ordinary shapes. "You wrote that you live simply," she said at last. Thomas's jaw tightened, not in anger, in measure. "I wrote that I live quietly," he corrected. She studied his hands on the reins, scarred, not from cattle alone. "And the woman before me?" she asked, the one who answered first. The air thickened. "There was no wife," he said too quickly, then, slower. "There was a woman who considered it." "What happened to her?" He stared ahead. "She died." The words dropped heavy, final. Lin did not believe them. Worse, she believed the truth would hurt more. The house appeared like a thought that did not belong to the land. Stone and dark timber. Tall. Watching. Iron gates guarded a winding drive, lined with bare trees that reached skyward like warnings. This was not the small ranch house she had imagined. The gates opened without chains. A man in livery waited. Something inside her went cold. A servant took her trunk. Another helped her down, careful but watchful. Lin stepped onto gravel, her white dress suddenly foolish, fragile. "Whatever you see," Thomas said quietly, "don't judge too fast." A woman's voice answered before Lin could. "So this is her." Margaret Calder descended the steps with measured grace. Her black dress was severe, expensive, her eyes evaluated, not welcomed. "You are the bride," Margaret said. It was not a greeting. "Yes, ma'am," Lin replied, lifting her chin. Dignity was armor. "Inside," Margaret ordered. The house swallowed them into dim warmth and heavy beauty. Thick rugs, dark portraits, curtains drawn against daylight. Lin's steps sounded too small. "You are far from home," Margaret said, her tone smooth and sharp. "We do not indulge weakness here." "I did not come to be indulged," Lin answered. Margaret paused. calculated, then turned away. A young woman waited in the hall. Pale, thin, no more than 17. Her hands were clenched tight. "I'm Ruth Calder," she whispered. "Thomas is my brother." Lean offered a careful smile. "You may call me Lean." Ruth's eyes flicked to the dark end of the corridor. "Please," she whispered. "Do not go near the West Wing at night." "Ruth," Margaret snapped, "enough." The girl shrank back. Lean understood then. Silence here was not peace. It was enforced. Supper felt like ceremony. Assigned seats, lowered eyes. Silver that gleamed too brightly. Food too rich for a poor ranch. Thomas wore the same patched coat. A man arrived late, neatly dressed, smiling thinly. "Edgar Bell," he said. "I manage the family's affairs." "Our lawyer," Thomas corrected. Margaret watched Lean eat. "You read," she said. "Yes, ma'am." "In English?" "Yes." "And Chinese?" Edgar smiled, measuring. "She is my wife," Thomas said. "Not an asset." "A wife is a responsibility," Margaret replied. "Responsibilities serve functions." Lean set down her fork. "I came to build a life," she said, "not to be counted." Margaret smiled without warmth. Ruth slipped a folded note beneath Lean's plate. Lean did not react. That night, the house breathed, settled, creaked. Lean sat awake and unfolded the note. She did not die on the road. Do not trust the study. Footsteps passed her door. Voices murmured. Her name spoken. "She must sign," Edgar said. "She will," Margaret answered. Morning came gray. Thomas met her with tired eyes. "There's something you should see," he said. Beyond the house, the land opened wide. Pastures, herds, men working with purpose. Then more. Buildings, rail spurs, stacked goods that did not belong to cattle. "This is not a poor ranch," Lean said. "No," Thomas answered. "What is it?" Quote, "What my family built," he said, "and kills to keep." "You lied." "I did," he said, "because the last woman learned too fast." Lean's breath caught. "Are you protecting me?" she asked, "or using me?" "I wanted to protect you," he said, "even if I chose the wrong way." A rider approached, urgent. "Mrs. Calder wants you in the study," the man said. "And Mr. Vane arrives by noon." "Who is Vane?" Lean asked. Thomas's voice flattened. "A man who smiles like a friend," he said, "and bites like a wolf." Lean looked back at the hidden valley, at the house, at the man beside her. She had stepped into something vast, dangerous, and it already knew her name. The study smelled of ink and cold ash. Lean felt it the moment she crossed the threshold. The air was tighter here, as if truth had been pressed flat and locked into drawers. Heavy shelves lined the walls. Ledgers, deeds, papers stacked with the patience of power. The desk sat in the center like a judge's bench, wide and polished, waiting. Margaret Calder was already seated. She did not rise. Thomas stopped beside Lean, close enough that his sleeve brushed hers. Not touching, guarding. Edgar Bell stood near the window, hands folded behind his back, his reflection floating faintly in the glass like a second thought. "You were asked to come alone," Margaret said to Thomas. "She is my wife," Thomas replied. "She stays." Margaret's eyes shifted to Lean, cold, weighing. "So you insist on learning more than you should," Margaret said. "Curiosity is dangerous in this house." Lean kept her voice calm. "So is secrecy." Edgar smiled faintly. "Not kind. Please," he said. "This need not be difficult." Margaret slid a paper across the desk, one sheet, heavy with meaning. "A simple assurance," she said. "A signature. Protection for the family." Lean did not reach for it. "Protection from whom?" she asked. Margaret's mouth tightened. "From men who circle what they want." "Like Mr. Vane," Lean said. Silence landed hard. Thomas's posture shifted. Margaret's eyes sharpened. "You will not speak his name so easily," Margaret snapped. "Then tell me why it matters," Lean replied. Edgar stepped forward. "Marriage creates legal bridges," he said smoothly. "Your name closes gaps, prevents intrusion. If it is harmless," Lean said, "I will read it." Edgar's smile thinned. "It is written in proper legal language." "Then it will survive reading." Thomas exhaled slowly. Lean felt the tension ripple through him. Margaret's fingers tapped once on the desk. Sharp. Final. "You are bold," Margaret said. "Boldness breaks." Quote. "I have already been broken," Lean answered. "I am still standing." Margaret rose. The room seemed to shrink beneath her authority. "You were brought here to belong," she said, "not to question." Thomas moved then, one step forward, small, defiant. "She belongs to herself," he said. "And to me." Margaret's gaze cut into him. "You forget your place." "I remember it too well," Thomas replied. Lean did not wait for permission. She turned from the desk and walked out. Her steps were steady. Each one felt earned. The hallway felt colder. Portraits watched, silent men with heavy eyes. Thomas followed her. Outside, the air tasted cleaner, less trapped. "I'm sorry," he said. She did not answer right away. "They plan to use my name," she said. "As a lock?" "Yes." "Against Vane?" "Yes." "Why him?" Thomas looked toward the distant hills. "Because he wants what lies beneath them." "The mine," Lean said. His jaw tightened. "Yes." She faced him fully then. "And the woman before me?" His silence was long. "She did not die on the road," he said at last. "She learned too much, too fast. She tried to leave." "What happened?" "I don't know where she is," he said, "but I know why she ran." Lean felt the truth settle heavy in her chest. "And you," she said softly, "why did you stay?" Quote. Thomas's voice dropped. "Because running didn't save my sister." Lean thought of Ruth's frightened eyes, her warning, her silence. A horn sounded near the drive, polished, confident. "Vane," Thomas said. "He's early." They returned to the house together. This time, Lean did not feel small. Horace Vane arrived like he owned the ground beneath his boots. His coat was clean, his smile practiced, his eyes sharp as winter water. "Mrs. Calder," he said smoothly. "A pleasure." "Mr. Vane," Margaret replied, "you are punctual. Only when it matters." His gaze slid to Lean, lingering, assessing. "And you must be the bride," he said. "A surprise." Lean met his look without warmth. "I am not a surprise," she said. "I am a fact." Something flickered in his eyes. Interest, calculation. Lunch passed under polite tension, words chosen carefully, smiles sharp at the edges. Vane spoke of rail routes, of investments, of cooperation. Lean listened. When he addressed her directly, his tone softened. "Testing. Marriage is change," he said. "Some find it limiting." "I find dishonesty more limiting," she replied. Thomas's hand brushed hers beneath the table, brief, steady. Later, in the corridor, Vane caught Lean alone. "You should be careful," he said quietly. "This house eats people." "So do wolves," Lean answered. "Yet here you are." His smile faded. Respect flickered, then hardened. "You do not know the price of refusal," he said. "I know the price of silence," she replied. He stepped back, watching. That night, Ruth came to Lean's door, pale, shaking. "They're moving papers," she whispered, "in the study, tonight." Lean nodded. Calm settled over her like armor. "Will you help me?" Lean asked. Ruth hesitated, then nodded once. They moved quietly. The house breathed around them. Floorboards whispered. The study door stood ajar. Inside, lamplight glowed. Edgar's voice drifted out. "Once she signs, Vane loses leverage." Quote, "And if she refuses?" Margaret asked. Edgar's tone cooled. "Then pressure increases." Lean stepped forward. "No," she said. They turned. Shock flashed. Anger followed. "You will sign," Margaret said. Lean shook her head, not without truth. Vane's voice came from the shadows. "Truth is flexible." Lean met his gaze. "So is courage." Thomas appeared behind her, solid, present. "I will not let you force her," he said. Margaret's eyes burned. "Then you choose her over this family." Thomas did not hesitate. "Yes." The word echoed. Lean felt the weight of it, the cost. Outside, thunder rolled, distant, promising. And in that sound, Lean understood something clearly. Whatever came next would not be quiet. The thunder did not break the sky. It waited. That was how the night felt. Held, suspended. As if the land itself was listening to the choice Thomas Calder had just made. Margaret did not speak at once. She studied her son the way a general studies a battlefield after losing ground. Her face showed no shock, only calculation. "So," she said finally, "you would throw away everything." Thomas did not raise his voice. "I am choosing what was never truly mine." Edgar Bell shifted near the desk. His polite mask had slipped. "You are being reckless," he said. "Emotion clouds judgment." Lean felt Thomas's hand hover near her back, not touching, asking without words if she was still steady. She was. "You plan to use my name," Lean said, "to trap a man who knows your weakness." Horace Vane stepped forward, slow and deliberate. "Not trap," he said. "Contain." Lean looked at him fully for the first time. The charm, the polish, the eyes that counted exits. "You feed on leverage," she said. "That is why you are angry." Vane smiled thinly. "You are observant." "And you underestimate silence," she replied. Margaret's patience snapped. "Enough. This ends now." "It does," Lean agreed, "but not how you planned." She reached into her satchel and withdrew Ruth's folded note, then another paper, and another. Edgar's breath caught. "You have been careless," Lean said. "Your ledgers contradict your contracts." Quote. Thomas turned sharply. "What?" Lean met his gaze. "I read while you slept." Ruth stood in the doorway, pale but standing. "The West Wing," Lean continued, "is not storage, it is proof." Vane's smile vanished. "You went where you were warned not to," Margaret said. "I went where truth was buried," Lean answered. Edgar moved quickly. "This is highly inappropriate." "So is coercion," Lean said. Thomas stepped forward. "What proof?" Lean handed him the papers. "Routes, shipments, names, payments that do not match cattle." Thomas read. His face tightened. Something inside him broke loose. "You built this on blood," he said to his mother. Margaret did not deny it. "I built it on survival." Vane laughed softly. "Now you see why this family cannot afford honesty." Lean folded her hands. "You cannot afford exposure." Silence pressed in. "You think you are untouchable," Vane said. "You are not." Lean met his stare. "Neither are you." Outside, hoofbeats approached. Fast, purposeful. Ruth flinched. Edgar went still. Thomas looked at Lean. Understanding dawned. "You sent for them," he said. "Yes," she replied, "before I ever came here." Margaret's eyes narrowed. "Who?" "Men who do not belong to this house," Lean said. "Men who answer to law." The front door opened. Voices carried. Firm. Official. Vane swore under his breath. Margaret straightened her shoulders. "You would destroy your own family." Lean's voice was quiet. "You destroyed it first." The officers moved through the house with measured control. Questions were asked, papers taken, faces hardened. Vane was escorted out without ceremony. His smile never returned. Edgar followed, pale, silent. Margaret stood alone in the study. Smaller now, still sharp, still unbending. Thomas did not look at her. When it was done, dawn had begun to creep into the halls. Pale, reluctant. The house felt different, less alive, less watching. Lean stood by the window, exhaustion settling into her bones. Thomas joined her. You risked everything, he said. So did you, she replied. He nodded once. I don't know what comes next. Neither do I, Lean said. But it will be chosen. Quote, they walked outside together. The land stretched wide, honest. Wind brushed the grass. For the first time, Lean saw the ranch without the weight of secrets pressing down. It was still large, still powerful, but no longer hidden. Ruth joined them, hesitant. I told the truth, she said softly. Thomas placed a hand on her shoulder. You were brave. Her eyes filled. Relief loosened her frame. Margaret watched from the doorway. Alone, unmoving. She did not speak when Thomas met her gaze. And for the first time, she did not command. Later in the stable, the scent of hay and earth wrapped around them. Simple. Real. Thomas brushed a horse with slow strokes. I did not plan to care, he said quietly. Distance was easier. Lean leaned against the stall rail. Distance has never saved me. He set the brush down. I lied, he said. Because fear taught me to. Lean stepped closer. Truth teaches differently. He looked at her then, fully, no guard. I want you to stay, he said. But not trapped. She rested her hand against his chest, felt his heart steady beneath it. I will stay, she said, if we build something honest. He nodded. Together. When he drew her into his arms, the embrace was careful, earned, warm. Outside, the storm finally broke. Rain fell clean and hard, and Lean understood something simple and sure. Love did not arrive without cost, but it could arrive without chains. The rain washed the dust from the yard and left the earth dark and breathing. Lean stood on the porch and let the sound settle her. The house behind her felt quieter now. Not kinder, but less sharp, as if something poisonous had been pulled from its walls, leaving behind an ache where it once lived. Thomas joined her without a word. He leaned against the post, shoulders heavy, eyes on the land. They will come again, he said at last. Yes, Lean answered, but not the same way. He nodded. Mother will not forgive this. Lean did not pretend surprise. Forgiveness is not what she values. They stood together, not touching. The space between them felt deliberate, respectful. Inside the house, Margaret Calder remained secluded. The officers had gone. The papers were taken. Edgar Bell's absence left a hollow that echoed through the corridors. Servants moved with less fear, but still, with caution, as if waiting for a command that no longer came. Ruth found Lean later that morning in the kitchen. She hasn't spoken, Ruth whispered. Not to anyone. Lean rinsed her hands and dried them slowly. She is not used to being answered. Ruth swallowed. What happens now? Lean considered the question. Now we live honestly. That will feel like chaos at first. Ruth managed a weak smile. I think I would like that. The days that followed were filled with sorting, not just papers, but habits. Men came to renegotiate contracts. Rail interests withdrew. Others tested boundaries. Thomas faced them all with a quiet firmness Lean had not seen before. He did not hide. At night they spoke in low voices. Of what remained, of what could be saved. The mine was shut down. The workers were paid and sent on with letters of reference. It cost more than Thomas expected. It cost less than silence had. Margaret finally emerged on the fourth day. She entered the parlor dressed as she always had. Black, precise, controlled. Thomas rose. Mother. She studied him. Then Lean. You have turned this house inside out, she said. It needed air, Lean replied. Margaret's eyes hardened. You believe this ends with applause? No, Lean said. It ends with responsibility. Margaret looked back to her son. You chose her. I chose myself, Thomas answered. She stood with me. Margaret's mouth tightened. Do not expect my blessing. I don't, Thomas said. Only your restraint. Silence followed. Long. heavy. At last Margaret spoke again. "I built this so you would never be weak." Thomas met her gaze. "You taught me fear, not strength." Something flickered in her eyes. Pain, brief, quickly buried. She turned and left the room. Lean released a breath she had not realized she was holding. That evening, Thomas found Lean at the edge of the pasture. The sky burned low and red. "You didn't have to stand between us," he said. She watched the horizon. "I didn't stand between, I stood beside." He smiled faintly. "That feels new." "So does trust," she replied. They walked slowly. The grass brushed their boots. The land felt open, forgiving. "I don't know how to be this man," Thomas said quietly, "one who chooses openly." "You learn," Lean said, "one honest step at a time." He stopped then, turned to her. "You could still leave," he said. "You owe me nothing." Lean held his gaze. "I owe myself a life that is not run from." He reached for her hand, paused, waiting. She placed her hand in his. The contact was warm, steady, real. In the days that followed, the house changed. Curtains were opened, windows cracked. Rooms long closed were cleaned and claimed. The West Wing lost its silence. Sunlight reached places it had not in years. Ruth laughed more. The sound startled everyone the first time. Margaret watched from a distance, still sharp, still proud, but quieter. One afternoon, she stopped Lean in the hall. "You are not what I expected," Margaret said. Lean inclined her head. "Neither are you." Margaret's lips pressed thin. "Do not mistake restraint for approval." Quote, "I won't," Lean replied, "but I will accept coexistence." Margaret considered her, then nodded once. It was not kindness, but it was something. That night, Thomas and Lean sat by the fire. The flames cast soft light across the room. "I thought wealth meant safety," Thomas said. "I was wrong." Lean rested her head against the chair back. "Safety comes from truth." He reached for her again, this time without hesitation. "I am glad you came," he said. "So am I," she answered. Outside, the land stretched quiet and wide, no longer hiding what lay beneath it. And in that stillness, Lean understood the truth she had traveled so far to find. She had not married a poor rancher. She had married a man learning, at last, how to be free. Change did not arrive with celebration. It arrived with effort. Lean learned that quickly. Each morning brought new decisions. Which contracts to honor? Which fences to mend? Which men to keep? And which loyalties to release? The ranch did not collapse without the mine, but it did not glide forward either. It adjusted, slowly. Honestly, Thomas worked harder than she had ever seen him work, not hiding behind silence now, speaking plainly, standing in doorways instead of shadows. Lean watched him from a distance at first. The way he listened, the way men leaned in instead of away. Respect grew where fear had lived. That mattered. Yet the house still carried echoes. Some nights, Lean woke before dawn, listening to the quiet settle into unfamiliar shapes. Freedom had a sound. It was softer, less certain. One afternoon, a letter arrived without a return name. Thomas read it twice, then folded it carefully. "Vain?" Lean asked. "Yes," he said. "He has not forgiven exposure." She nodded. "He won't." The threat was subtle, legal pressure, whispered questions in distant towns. But it was there, waiting. "We will not hide," Thomas said. Lean met his gaze. "Then we must be visible." They traveled together for the first time a week later, to the nearest town, to speak openly, to register deeds, to answer questions. Eyes followed them, some curious, some sharp. Lean walked beside Thomas with her head high, her white dress replaced by sturdy cotton now, still clean, still deliberate. "You don't flinch," Thomas murmured as they passed a group of men. "I survived worse," she replied. "This is only watching." That night, back at the ranch, Margaret confronted them. "You invite scrutiny," she said. "You weaken us." You confuse secrecy with strength, Thomas answered. Margaret's gaze flicked to Lean. And you encourage him. Lean did not deny it. I encourage truth. Margaret's voice sharpened. Truth is expensive. So is fear, Lean replied. Silence followed. Long. Taut. Then Margaret said something unexpected. You will fail, she said, if you do not harden. Thomas answered calmly. We will endure. Margaret turned away, but Lean saw something then. Not anger, concern. That night, Ruth knocked on Lean's door. She frightens me less now, Ruth admitted. That makes me sad. Lean took her hand. Change unsettles those who built walls. I don't want to become like her, Ruth said. You won't, Lean replied. You ask questions. Spring pushed slowly across the land. Grass thickened. The herds grew strong. One evening, Thomas and Lean walked the fence line together. The sky stretched wide and pale. You are quiet, Thomas said. Lean smiled faintly. I am listening. To what? To the life we are building. He stopped walking. Are you happy? He asked. Lean considered the question. Carefully. I am becoming so, she said. He exhaled. Relief softened him. I do not know how to give you more, he said. You give me choice, she answered. That is enough. He reached for her hand, held it this time without doubt. In the distance a rider approached. Slow, unarmed. It was Margaret. She dismounted stiffly, stood alone by the fence. I have sold my shares, she said without greeting. Thomas stared. Why? Because I no longer recognize the house, she replied, and because Vane will circle again. Lean felt the weight of the admission. You are leaving, Thomas said. Yes. For good? Margaret hesitated. For now. She looked at Lean, truly looked. You are not weak, she said. You are dangerous in a quieter way. Quote. Lean inclined her head. I will take that as respect. Margaret almost smiled, almost. When she rode away, the land felt lighter. That night, Thomas stood beside Lean at the window. I spent my life fearing her disappointment, he said. I forgot my own. Lean rested her hand on his arm. You are learning. He turned to her then, fully, open. I love you, he said. The words were plain, earned. Lean felt them settle deep, warm. I know, she replied. I feel it in what you do. He drew her into his arms, this time without caution. Outside, the wind moved gently through the grass, and Lean understood something simple. What Thomas truly owned was not land, not cattle, not wealth. He owned the courage to change. And he was finally sharing it. The day Margaret Calder left, the house did not mourn. It settled. Lean felt it in the way doors closed without echo, in how servants moved with less caution, shoulders no longer hunched, as if expecting correction. The house was still large, still heavy with history, but it no longer pressed down on every breath. Thomas watched the dust fade from the road long after his mother was gone. You do not have to grieve her absence, Lean said gently. I am not, he replied. I am grieving the years I gave away. Lean understood that kind of loss. It left no grave, only quiet. Summer came strong. Work filled the days, honest work. The ranch found its rhythm again, slower but steadier. Buyers returned, this time for cattle alone. The books balanced, not richly, cleanly. Lean took on tasks she had never imagined claiming. Correspondence, accounts, negotiations that required patience more than power. Men learned quickly not to mistake her calm for weakness. Thomas trusted her without question. That trust shaped everything. One afternoon, a letter arrived bearing a familiar hand. Ruth brought it to Lean, her face tight. From Margaret. Lean read it in silence. She will not return. She has settled elsewhere. She warns that Horace Vane has not stopped asking questions. Lean folded the letter carefully. We already knew, Thomas said. Yes, Lean agreed. But knowing changes how we prepare. Quote, The warning proved true. Vane did not come with threats this time. He came with offers. Partnerships, polite inquiries through intermediaries. Each was declined. Calmly. Publicly. Eventually, the questions stopped. Power did not like being seen. Autumn softened the land. Gold crept into the grass. The air sharpened at night. Lean and Thomas walked the ranch often now, not to inspect, but to breathe. "You never asked me why I chose your letter," Thomas said one evening. Lean smiled faintly. "I wondered." "You wrote plainly," he said. "No promise, no pleading, just truth." Lean looked out over the land. "I was tired of surviving." "So was I," he said. They stopped near the rise that once hid the mine. Grass now covered the scars, earth reclaiming itself. "We cannot erase what was done," Thomas said. "No," Lean replied, "but we can decide what follows." Winter came early that year. Snow dusted the fences. Fires burned steady. One night, Thomas found Lean seated by the window, sewing quietly. "Will you ever regret staying?" he asked. She set the needle aside, thought carefully. "No," she said, "but I would have regretted staying without truth." He nodded. "Then we chose correctly." The wedding ceremony they held was small, no guests beyond Ruth and a handful of trusted hands, no spectacle, just vows spoken clearly. When Thomas promised honesty, his voice did not waver. When Lean promised partnership, she meant it without illusion. Life did not soften after that. It steadied. Years passed. The ranch grew known not for secrecy, but for fairness. Workers stayed. Neighbors spoke well. Ruth found her voice, then her courage, then her own path beyond the valley. Margaret never returned. Sometimes Lean thought she felt her presence in the halls. Not watching, just remembering. On a spring morning years later, Lean stood at the same station where her journey had begun. Not waiting, watching. Thomas stood beside her. "You are quiet," he said. "I am grateful," she replied. They boarded the train together this time, not to escape, to visit, to see what the world looked like when choice guided the way. As the train pulled away, Lean rested her head against Thomas's shoulder. She thought of the girl who had arrived with one trunk and a paper folded thin with hope, of the woman she had become. She had not married wealth. She had married a man willing to unlearn fear. That was what he truly owned, and it was enough.